Welcome to the Watering Hole. We're so glad you're here. Whether you've joined us before or if this is your first time, please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat by sharing your name, where you're joining from, and any social media links you would like others to know. My name is Robin Dobbins, and I'm a community coordinator here at Metabolic Collective. Our mission is simple and ambitious. We build grassroots communities that advance awareness of and access to metabolic therapies for psychiatric and neurological disorders, because we envision a world where metabolic therapies are widely adopted. Here at the Watering Hole, we hold a regular space for people who care about metabolic therapies, mental health, and community to learn together and spark new projects. The purpose is to introduce community members with shared interests so they can launch their own groups. Metabolic Collective and our guest speakers do not provide individual or group medical healthcare advice, and there's no provider-patient relationship established. I am thrilled to welcome my friend Casey Ruff. He is a certified personal trainer, a metabolic health coach, and host of Boundless Body Radio, a podcast where he explores low carb, ketogenic, and carnivore nutrition, strength training, and lifestyle strategies for long-term health. As co-founder of Boundless Body LLC, Casey has spent more than 17 years helping thousands of clients use resistance training, metabolic testing, and real food, low carb approaches to build strength, improve body composition, and expand their capacity for life. And guys, I'm going to leave. I'll be back. You'll see me in a few.
Hello, everybody. My name is Casey Ruff. I am the co-owner of Boundless Body LLC with my wife, Bethany. I've been a personal trainer for almost 2 decades, 19 years this year, and a nutrition coach for the last 8 years. I found ketogenic diets by using equipment called a metabolic cart, which would measure how people utilize their calories both while they're resting and while they're exercising, and found that whenever we reduced carbohydrates and increased proteins and fats with people, we got tremendous results. And also with weight loss contests, when we started to implement weight loss contests without my company knowing, the company I used to be with knowing. Okay. Okay, you gotta, come on, you look ready.
I'm ready.
That's amazing. Was not expecting that.
That's the whole reason why I did it.
Whatever I was saying mid-sentence, don't worry about it. It's not important. You're incredible.
Thank you.
That's awesome. I was just explaining a little bit about my background. I wanted to ask you, if you don't mind me playing podcast host for a second. Why did you, we've been working together for almost a year now.
Blinding me. Okay.
Why did you decide to hire a personal trainer?
Well, I used to train on my own. And then I just had a bunch of stuff happen in my life that it knocked that out. And I needed someone to help me get it back. And I knew you. Oh. And so I contacted you and you helped me get back on track. And now I don't hate getting, that moment where you're like, oh, I just don't want to do this today. I know I have to answer to you, and that keeps me motivated.
Well, that's great. I'm certainly glad that you reached out when you did. It's been a really fun journey of getting a lot stronger. You were kind of in a tough place after some things in your personal life last year, and I'm glad you're able to pull through a lot of that. So we'll be talking about strength training today. I think most people are aware of the benefits of strength training, why it is so important. There are some principles that you need to follow to get the best results, just like a well-formulated ketogenic diet has to be followed to get the proper results. Strength training is about the same. I do want to say that the first thing I think you should be thinking about when you're thinking about a workout program is something that a podcast guest that both you and I have interviewed, Amy Berger, talks about it a little bit on the diet side. A ketogenic diet, metabolically nutritional diet that you put together for yourself, it's for you. You want it to be for you. It's not to make your life miserable and hate it. And I think the same thing about workouts. Like, workouts are hard. There's days that you wake up, like you said, and you just really don't want to work out. But you shouldn't be miserable doing it. If there's exercises you don't like, if there's, different methods you don't like, don't feel like you have to force it to get the best results, and know that you can mix things up and have a lot of variety if that's something that's really important to you. there's a lot of really good information out there about proper, strength training. Ben Bakikio is a really great example of somebody who's written several books. The dude is way more experienced than I am, in his 70s. He looks absolutely amazing. He'll be here at this conference this weekend. He's written a lot of great books about this stuff. But what we're going to be demonstrating is a workout where we're going to be challenging the muscles in a way that works by moving a weight very, very slowly. Of course, if you have access to a full gym, you're going to have lots of different options, but many people either don't have access to a gym or they don't really like going to a gym. So we want to show you how you can accomplish a workout with bands that should cost no more than about $30 that you can do at home. We're doing this workout on a tree, okay? So if we can work out on a tree, and I train people during COVID on banisters of their stairs and on Zoom all over the world, like you can figure this out on your own. So we're going to be doing the band workout. A few different styles of bands that I wanted to point out. This band is like a big loop. So you can use it in multiple different ways, in a way that's like singled like this, or you can double it up and even attach a set of handles to make the pull be even just a little bit stronger. These are really versatile. And like I said, they shouldn't cost very much if you're buying them on Amazon. Another way that you can do these is a band that already has handles attached. This one pulls quite strong on its own. So this would be good for exercises where you're using your biggest muscle groups, or for somebody who's a little bit advanced and needs some stronger resistance. So that's kind of what we'll be demonstrating today. And what we're going to show you is 6 of my favorite exercises to give people a total body workout that is focused on using the biggest muscle groups in the body, and tiring them out until they're exhausted, essentially. The mix of exercises that we have is a perfect combination of pushing exercises and pulling exercises. We're going to start out with a standing row, which is a horizontal pull, and then we're going to do the opposite of that in a second. But we'll have Robin demonstrate in her amazing outfit.
You like my outfit?
Yeah, real quick. I want to point out this as well. We're using just some simple tie-down straps to anchor to this tree. There's also door mounts that are very simple to use, and as long as you use them correctly, can be used safely and give you tons of different options. So that looks like this, and it normally comes with a set of bands anyway. So we are going to start by doing a standing row. Like I said, this is a horizontal upper body pull. It's nice to do this in person.
I know.
It's so much better than trying to do it over Zoom. This is great. What you're seeing Robin do is trying to keep her shoulders really low and squeeze her back together. She's obviously using her arms in this exercise, but what we're trying to target is the biggest muscles of her back, squeezing that together. There's a lot of different ideas about how many sets, how many reps, what kind of weights should somebody use. Regardless of what kind of system you want to go with, the thing that is paramount, the most important, is that the exercise needs to be challenging. Robin's moving very slowly with control, especially on the release. So it's impossible for her to get injured doing this exercise. I've done podcast episodes with people that do strength training in geriatrics. So people who are 70, 80, 90 years old, they can perform exercise and see tons of benefit. I've also interviewed mothers who talk about pregnancy and talk about how important strength training is, even for the baby in a pregnancy. And like I said, as we're moving slowly and with control, it's not the kind of intensity where your heart rate's very high or you're breathing really heavy, like somebody running on a piece of cardio. It's an intensity that starts to build in the muscles. So I would maybe ask, like, how is this feeling? Easy, medium, or hard? Or maybe I would say, like, scale of 1 to 10, how difficult is this currently?
It's not difficult.
Okay.
So I need to.
Yep. We typically like to target somewhere around 2 to maybe 3 minutes on each set. Again, the most important thing is that the exercise that you're doing is challenging. So if you go a little bit longer than 2 or 3 minutes, it really just means you're kind of wasting time. We're after the part of the exercise that is the hardest. And so anything that gets you up to that point is kind of just the roadway to get you to the end of the journey. So if we can kind of speed that up, we'll do that by maybe like making Robin hold or do pulses in the end range of motion, where this band is at its greatest resistance. Yeah, awesome. How's that feeling?
That's much harder.
Okay. If you want to, you can go back to using the full range of motion, which will relieve a little bit of the tension.
Yeah. Just even with this light band, adding that pulse in makes a huge difference.
It makes a huge difference. So when we talk about using bands versus weight, a weight is always the same weight as long as you're on planet Earth, right? We have gravity. So if you pick up a weight and it's 5 pounds down here, it's 5 pounds up here. That doesn't change. With a band, we call this progressive resistance because, again, as the band is being pulled out, it's getting harder and harder. It's actually getting heavier. And that works really well with Robin's kind of mechanical advantage, where she's got the least mechanical advantage where there's also the least amount of resistance. And as she gains mechanical advantage, she's actually making the band harder. So it's like going from 10 pounds to 20 pounds to 30 pounds to 40 pounds. It's making pretty cool. Getting there?
I thought you said this was a demonstration.
Let me just step out of the way, actually. Excellent job. So,
well, yes, I could feel it, especially because I stepped back and because I started doing the pulsing.
I wanted to take that one just a little bit further too, so you could demonstrate like what it actually feels like. So for you, when you get close to the end, what things do you notice? What are you feeling?
Well, it starts to get tighter. I do have some problems with my joints, my elbows, so I do pay attention to my elbows and whether or not they start hurting, because I don't want to ever make that worse. So I pay attention to that. So maybe my elbows might start screaming before the rest of my muscles start screaming.
What things do you notice like in your brain? Do you notice like this sucks and I want to get out of it? Do you notice like a little bit of anxiety creeping in or the tendency to like speed up?
Well, you mentioned Ben Bakikio and his go to failure. And I think going to failure is really hard, especially when you work out by yourself, because your brain's going to start screaming at you before your muscles do.
Yeah.
So I do try to, as you know, when we work out, you'll count and then I'll say, I'm going to push out 2 more. So when you say it's kind of time to stop, or when you start seeing me shake, I still try to do like 2 more.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Yeah, that's a perfect description of what you should be feeling when the set is coming to a close. It's getting really, really tough. I really don't want to keep doing this. I'd never take a first-time beginner to the deepest level of fatigue as possible. You may remember the first month that we were doing the exercises and they were challenging, but they're not nearly the same level of challenge.
You want to wipe off?
No, I'm good. It's lovely over here. I love being sweaty. We're going to flip this exercise around and show you the opposite exercise. We did an upper body pull in the horizontal plane. So we're going to switch it, flip around, and do a horizontal push like that in the upper body. So this would be a chest press. We are just, you're on the rock. Hopefully they're not too hot. And then, yes, what you're going to do here on this exercise is actually, it's a little bit better to do a stagger stance like Robin's doing, where one foot is in front of the other, because as the bands are coming back, sometimes they'll want to like kind of pull you back a little bit on this exercise. And she's just going to be taking her arms from wide to narrow, pushing in front of her, working the upper part of the chest and the front part of the shoulders. Again, we're trying to tackle the biggest muscle groups, some of the biggest muscle groups in the body, just like that. And since you've already demonstrated, getting to a level of kind of deep fatigue, we don't need to push you that hard every time. So the sweatband might still be clean after this.
Yeah, that's the goal.
It is a little toasty. But yeah, this is a chest press. Another thing to point out is we are just demonstrating this exercise one way using a band. These exercises, you see the movement that she's doing. There's a million different ways you could think of to get that same movement. Again, if you're in a gym, recently you were traveling and you were in a gym and we found a chest press machine that you were able to use that worked really well. This also looks like a push-up. You can do a push-up from the ground. Our friend Mark that's with us does probably 1,000 push-ups, maybe single arm every single day. If you're just getting started and it's new, you could do a push-up at an angle, which makes it a lot easier. You could do this with a TRX. There's just so many different ways that you can accomplish what we're demonstrating here. This is just one way to do things. Getting there? Pretty good?
Sure.
There we go. We're there. 10. Excellent.
500.
Again, we're just trying to get to the point.
To mention that I worked out yesterday.
That is true.
So.
Robin and I just did our weekly workout yesterday, so she gets a bit of a pass on this one. And now is normally a good time to say that we have been working the upper body. Again, a lot of the big muscle groups. Let's start to work some of the lower body to give the upper body a little bit of a break. So the 2 patterns we're going to be looking at, again, we want to stay balanced between pushing and pulling. So a lower body push could be any version of a squat pattern. This could look like many different things. It could be a leg press. It could be a squat with weight. It could be a squat with a band, which we're going to demonstrate. You can do different variations of a push, something like a step up or a lunge. All of those accomplish the purpose of pushing yourself up against the ground using primarily the lower body. The version that we can do today, let's unclip this. A few different ways that you can do this. Like I demonstrated earlier, if you're using a loop band like this, you can kind of get under the band and squat that way, which will add a gentle amount of resistance. The one we're going to do is we're going to have this band doubled up. Robin, I'm going to have you stand on this. And then to get the best resistance, I'm going to have you, we're going to take out a lot of the slack of the band.
Oh, that's lovely. Thanks.
That is lovely. You're welcome. Okay, so now I'm going to have you go into a squat where you're going down nice and slow, bending at the knees with a slight bend in the hips, and standing up with the weight.
So I already know I can make that even tighter.
More?
Yep. There's like no resistance when I stand up. Yeah.
We would definitely need, if we were doing like a super hard workout, we would definitely need a thicker band than this to get the right result. But you get a sense of like how that resistance is kind of picking up as you're squatting. Can you feel the front part of your thighs, your quads? Can you feel your glutes as your hip extends?
Yep.
Excellent. Again, lots of different ways to do this. If you're new to exercise, body weight is just fine. This would be like sitting down in a chair and standing back up. You could do that a few times. If you want to add weight, you could hold something right in front of you or hold something to the side like dumbbells. Again, there's all kinds of different machines that will simulate this. The gym that I work out at has actually 15 unique different leg press machines. It's pretty cool. So you can kind of get exactly the right feel that you want, but that's the exercise.
Pretty easy.
Lower body push. See? Too strong.
No. I'm not saying the resistance is too easy. It's easy to just do a squat.
There you go. Excellent. So that would be lower body push. A lower body pull is what I think of as a deadlift. So pulling something up off the ground. What changes the most is where your body is moving to be able to do that. So a deadlift, I like to see that there's a slight bend in the knees, but most of the movement is actually coming from someone's hips as they're picking an object up off the ground like that, or they're pulling a band in a certain direction, which we're going to demonstrate today. This is a really important exercise. It's one of my favorite exercises to coach people on because we know that a lot of people have lower back problems. They might have injuries or just general pain. And we're trying to address that by doing this exercise in a controlled environment where we can make sure that somebody's not going to get hurt as they're doing this. Another thing to think about, like we mentioned earlier, if you're using weights like dumbbells or a barbell, that weight is going to stay the same throughout the entire movement, which means typically somebody will be grabbing a bar down around this kind of like height, which means they're lifting the same amount of weight through the entire movement. This is the spot where they have the least mechanical advantage, where there is a little bit of potential that you could cause too much strain and really hurt your back, which is very exposed in this kind of position. So either find a place where you can load your bar up where it's a little bit higher, or a place where you can set your deadlifts a little bit higher and start at the top versus trying to start at the bottom. Or like we said earlier, a band will make this a lot easier because as Robin's going to show you, she's going to do the same movement, but rather than pulling something up off the ground, she's going to be pulling against this band. It changes the angle slightly, but really doesn't change how the exercise works as far as extending the hip and working all of that, what we call the posterior chain, lower back, glutes, especially a little bit in the hamstrings. You want to try to show us?
You did a great job.
I'm not in the
You're
kit
not-
for
you're-
this.
You're obviously not dressed
Not ready.
appropriately.
Not ready. Yep. So in that position, everybody's just a little bit different as far as how much knee bend they like to do on a deadlift. I want to see some, but I really want to see a lot more of the movement coming from the hips as she extends the hips and pushes them forwards towards the tree.
And I just want you to notice the hummingbird that's flying above us.
I didn't see it.
You didn't see it?
No.
Oh.
Second favorite bird. You're a little partial to robin when you are hummingbirds, but that's okay. Yeah, excellent. This is a version of a deadlift. Again, there's a few different ways that you can do this. You can do this on a single leg. hinging the hip. There's certain machines that help simulate this. Doing something like a bridge on the ground where your hips are down and you're bringing your hips up can kind of work that same muscle group, getting a lot of glutes. Another one that I really like is called a kneeling squat, where somebody's kneeling down and then kneeling all the way up with either a band wrapped around their waist or a weight in front of them, or both. But this is a deadlift. Very good. Do you like doing the deadlift where you're pulling against this direction, or do you like the feel better of pulling directly up?
Well, you're asking the wrong person. You know how I love my weight.
Hey, let's
so
try it.
I like to pick them up off the ground.
So
But
again,
my elbows tend to. Oh,
that's okay. Let's try this. So this is a much heavier band, and what I'm going to have you do is, stand on it just like you did the other one. Let's take out some of the slack. And once you get situated, you can do the same thing. So this is going to look like the squat that we were just doing, but she's hinging again from the hips a lot more than she is from the knees.
Yeah, I like this one better.
You like this one better. Everybody has preferences. Try them all. See what you like and what speaks to your body and what doesn't. You're just going to find that one's going to work better than the other. And are you feeling the backside in a way that feels safe, controlled? Yeah. Don't feel like you're going to get injured at all?
Nope.
There you go. That's a deadlift. Please, 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 like a lot of these exercises you can do on your own pretty safely. Deadlift is the one you want to be very much the most conservative with. There's some days where I will go to a heavy deadlift. It might be the same weight that I'm used to doing, and I'll address the bar and just be like, nope, not today. Something feels tweaky in my back, or I feel like I don't have my best. That's not the time to attempt a deadlift. You want to do this very very conservatively. You want to really be careful. Hire somebody to at least take you through this and watch you so they can show you, yep, back is straight, spine looks really good, slight bend in the knees. I can see the glutes working as you're pushing your hips forward. That's a great exercise. Cool. Nice job.
Thanks.
Great. So that kind of took care of two major patterns in the lower body, again, focusing on the biggest muscle groups. So now we're going to go back to the upper body. In my opinion, we're starting to kind of get over the hump of what the biggest priority muscles are to some of the like lesser priority muscle groups. So the next one I want to do and demonstrate here is a pull down. That is not that easy.
Yeah, I had to take it all the way off. Yeah.
It's very spiny.
You don't have too many of those in Utah.
No, we don't. We do not. Although if the winner we had this year,
yeah, you'll grow them.
Might have some. So we're just using this tree again today just to have something to mount to that allows us to be outside in the sunshine. Just want to reiterate that if you don't have something to mount to like this, that's again where these door mounts are really, really helpful. They can go in a door at any angle. You just want to make sure that you're on the side of the door that it doesn't open in that direction. Because if you pull on the side that does and your doorknob slips, obviously that would be a very bad situation and you can get hurt. So always do it on the other side where the door is completely in the door jamb, is not going to open on that side. You can put this mount up high, like chest high for some of the other ones, or down low like we just did for the deadlift. This is a pull down. If you were at a gym, you would probably recognize the machine that you sit down on, and there's a bar or handles or something that you're pulling down towards you. When we're doing this with this type of an angle, we don't have anything directly overhead to pull. What I have Robin do is just tip forward slightly so the angle is exactly the same. If she's like this at the gym and wants to do a pull down machine, that's great. If we want to do it here, she just tips forward. This is working some of the muscles more down the side of the back. So classically, this could be known as a lat pull. Robin, I'm going to have you demonstrate a lat pull where you're coming more down the sides, a little bit more wide. Yep. Another cool thing about using handles, two handles, or using using anything with two handles versus using a bar is if you're doing a pull down with a bar, it stays the same width the whole time. So it puts you in kind of a weird position when you're way out here with your hands. What Robin's doing, it might be a little bit hard to see on the camera, but she's going from more narrow to more wide, which should feel a lot more natural. Now I'm going to have you demonstrate a closed grip pull down, which is both hands, facing each other and pull to the front part of your chest, just like that. Here's a different way of doing things. Doesn't fundamentally change the exercise. It's just a different way of pulling. This is a version that can really be one that I'm looking for somebody that has, you know, issues about joints. In fact, yesterday, you guys got some new equipment that went from a bar and added we call it a V bar, where it puts her hands in exactly this position. She tried it, and after 3 reps, she was like, oh yeah, this is way better. The last version I'm going to have you do is an underhand pull down. And I'm going to have you add, even at the very end, just a little bit of a crunch. This is another version that I really, really like. This is going to put a little bit more load in the biceps. And then also some people really like to feel like they're getting a little bit more core by having a little bit of crunch with the resistance. So those are 3 different ways that you can do that exercise. When I'm coaching somebody, unless we're really trying to target a specific muscle group, which most people, that's not their priority, that's more like a bodybuilding thing, I let them do whatever version of this that they like, and they can even change it up during the set or switch it up workout to workout depending on what feels good to their body. I had a client this morning before I got here. We did a pull day. So all the movements we did were pulls. And we did one that was underhand. We did one that was wide and went narrow. And we used one with a rope where he pulled the rope apart. We call that a face pull. So all different variations of the same kind of idea. Cool. Good job. Last major exercise. Oh.
If you want me to like,
if you really didn't like me in my workouts, you could have got me there.
You could have.
Could have. The last one we're going to demonstrate here is, again, an opposite exercise. So we just did a vertical pull in the upper body. So now we're going to do a vertical push in the upper body, and that's going to be a shoulder press. So just taking a pull down and reversing it to do a shoulder press. Again, lots of different ways to do this. What we're going to do to start and demonstrate today is just taking, you know, whatever mount you have, going low. We're going to mount up our bands, and then I have Robin, yep, flip around. You're going to be pushing upwards. The same kind of idea as with the pull down. Like you can kind of like change your angle just a little bit. If it feels like you're not getting into the shoulder, you can kind of tip forward just a little bit. This is one of the smaller muscle groups of the major muscle groups we've already worked, which is why I've saved it for last. Like I said, we want to prioritize the biggest muscle groups. For most people, shoulders are not as big and they tend to tire a little bit more quickly. We wouldn't, you just really wouldn't want to start with the smaller muscle group, like a shoulder, burn it out, and then not be able to capitalize on some of the other exercises that have more bang for the buck because you created a choke point. You created an area that's not strong enough to be able to continue. So those are some of the things you want to be thinking about. Let me show you one other version. With the loop bands, we're just going to let the handles fall. This band is going to be probably very easy for you, but go ahead and step inside the band. Yep. You kind of almost like squat down to kind of get
stay all the way. Okay.
Resistance. And now, yeah. So from there, you can go, or you can stand all the way up. It will burn really fast. Yep. So yeah, this is another way that you can do it with a loop band, standing inside of it and just pushing it directly up. Another variation of this would incorporate a little bit of lower body, which Robin was starting to do, which is go down into a squat and then push. So this is a push press.
Oh, I like a push press.
There you go.
A little different without the bar.
It is. I know. I know. You look so good in the movie with the bar. You had great form. Awesome. Those 6 exercises are what I call the big 6. It's just, there's, again, Dr. Ben, Dr. Doug McGuff, they have got different ways of doing the exercises and having names for them. Those to me are just the 6 exercises that work the most part of the body with the least amount of time. I don't know how long we've been going, but it felt like 20, 30 minutes so far.
Well, I took my glasses off.
Okay, we don't know. Sure. And we hit.
That's the best part, though, Casey. I don't know. I never know. You're like, oh, we only have 5 minutes left, and I'm like, oh, it's been an hour already.
You were like the second or third person that day to say, like, oh, time goes so fast when you're out here. Oh yeah, well, hummingbird, saying hello, learn how to work out. Awesome. Anything else that you like to do? Like we just showed you 6 exercises. I've got a software program that I use to put workouts together. I have 650 different exercises that I can put in for somebody. So this is just the core basic, like finding a way to work the body in a really efficient way. Anything else you like, you enjoy, you want to move laterally to the side, you want to practice twisting in some way, you want to add in core exercise, We didn't talk at all about ancillary muscles, but the muscles that work as a single joint. So a bicep curl, a tricep press, calves. Most people don't really need to work calves more than they already do, but any of those other things that you like, that's all fine. And you should do them if you want to do them. I would just keep in mind that you want to stay balanced. One thing that people don't realize is when a muscle gets strong, it has a tendency to get tight and get short. And when a muscle gets weak, it wants to get kind of long and stretched out. So if you notice a lot of kids these days who are not strength training and they're on their devices all the time, they might even walk around with a posture where their shoulders are forward, their hips point forward, which means there's an excessive amount of curvature in their lower back, and their neck kind of turns forward. We would also we would notice different patterns of the lower body where if they came down into a squat, their range of motion would be really poor, or their feet would turn way out. That's because their bodies are adapting to the position of being forward on a device or on a computer or on a phone all day, and the body starts to kind of get strong in those areas and it gets really weak in the other areas, which can open up possibilities for injury. So as long as you're doing a bicep curl, make sure you're doing a tricep press. Everything we did today was in balance. And I think that's a really good place to kind of start for a strength training program.
I agree. And when we started working together, that's pretty much what we did. And then we tweaked it from there. What the needs were.
Yep, we did. We found,
important to know.
Right. I mean, there was a time when you were not in your house, you were in another person's home. And so we had to adapt. What equipment do you have available there? What can you get on a plane? Probably not the best to try to get the awesome weight set you have in your garage on an airplane. Not very practical. So you just kind of adapt. And then over time, you decided like, oh, I like this. This makes my joints feel better. I don't like this. Let's sub this out. And we just kind of have changed it and evolved it over time.
That's why it's great to work with a trainer.
It hopefully is. It hopefully is. Well, and another thing, like, I don't tell you enough, but like you and I get to spend an hour of time every single week together. And we have like a lot of conversations, pretty deep conversations. Personal trainers become family with their clients, and we love you all, and we fight for you all, and we laugh with you, and we cry with you, and all the things. So if you are looking for a trainer, find someone you like if you can. I won't
do like I did.
I won't put Robin on the spot right now. Ask her. But find somebody you have good rapport with. We all have different backgrounds, and you might like a funny one. You might like a strict one to crack the whip, whatever. So just keep that in mind. But again, if you're looking for a strength training program, that's a great place to start.
Yep, I agree. Does anybody have any questions? We've got some in-house folk.
Yeah, this is awesome.
And then Emily, if you see any online, please let us know.
Okay, so short answer, yes. I'm not a physical therapist, so that's a limitation. Obviously, you always want to follow what medical, advice you get. That sounds lengthy to me. An hour and a half? Is it like an everyday kind of a thing? This is just a hunch, but I imagine a program that long, that's that frequent, asking for such a time commitment. There must be a ton of redundancy in there. This works the glutes, and then this other thing works the glutes, and then you do this to work the glutes, and so you could find that cutting exercises and finding the most valuable ones would save you time. And you could also just kind of think, okay, maybe I'll keep all the same exercises. I know they're working. I got them from a physical therapist. Maybe the prescribed sets, reps, rest periods, whatever's like consuming a lot of time, maybe you could just cut back on that by doing, okay, I like this exercise. I'm going to make it really hard. I'm going to do it for like 90 seconds or 2 minutes. And I'm going to be done. That's it. And if you go to that level, think of like frequency and intensity as being a teeter-totter. You can't have both. If somebody says, I do high intensity we call this high intensity training, which is different than high intensity interval training. It's a kind of intensity, again, that's in the muscles. If somebody tells me they're doing high intensity training 3 days a week, I'm telling them, no, you're not. That's not high enough intensity. That's way too much frequency to be able to push intensity. Your body cares about the intensity. And so I'd rather have you do once a week something that was, again, half hour, that was very challenging, and then give your body a whole week to adapt. So yeah, again, kind of lengthy answer, but great question. First of all, the goal of exercise, if I were to ask most people, they would say the goal is to get sore. if you're trying to get sore, I have an amazing program that I offer, and I'm so confident in how effective it is that I don't even charge for it. It's amazing. The program is called Come Over to My House. I'll see you at Saturday at 9 a.m. I've got some walls I would love to get painted. I haven't mowed my yard in a while, so you could do that. You could scale, help fix some shingles. That would be amazing. Fairly confident you're going to be sore, but it's for free. So help yourself. The goal of exercise is not necessary to get to being very sore, although oftentimes people are, which is fine. I like people to feel like the next day they're like, yeah, I definitely got a workout, but I'm not like bedridden. I didn't do so much that I can't walk for 2 or 3 days. And it's funny, for all the different technology I've worked with in my career, heart rate variability, even just resting heart rate, body temperature checking. We know these smart devices have all kinds of different things that they can check to assess what we call like exercise readiness. When are you ready to work out again? It turns out that one of the very best ones that you can use, this is kind of proven by science, is actually subjective. And it's basically like a self-assessment asking, how do I feel today? How excited am I to exercise? On a scale of like 1 to 5. And if you're not excited to exercise today, your readiness to work out on that day is probably going to be very low. And sure, you can do something, but that's not the best day to have your hardest workout. Or if you feel like that and you've got a race that day or something important that you have to do the exercise, it just might take you a lot longer to recover, and you might need to plan for that. So I would ask yourself every day, like, how do I feel? Am I excited to work out? Am I dreading a workout? It's kind of like Robin said in the beginning, like when you're first getting started with a program, you don't really want to work out, but it soon becomes something that you're like, yeah, like I like the way that I feel. I enjoy the results that I'm getting. So that would be my recommendation if you're trying to determine, between days of workout, when to go again. That's usually the best one. It's just self-assessment. And just one more quick point on that note. If you imagine that your health is kind of a line on the x-axis, and it's just kind of like gradually trending downward for your whole life for most people, when you exercise, any measurement I could take, blood work, any kind of inflammation marker in your body, when you work out, you are way less healthy after that workout than you are before. So basically what you're doing, you have an event, this workout, and it's taking your health on a downward trajectory. It's actually lower than when you entered the gym, which doesn't occur to a lot of people. The cool thing is your body will build itself back up and recover, but your body also doesn't like to be pushed outside of its little box. So if you did an exercise that was really challenging, you got to the end and like, oh, okay, one more, you pushed up against what you could do, your body thinks, well, that sucked. I don't want to go through that again. I'm going to build myself to be actually like a little bit stronger, so next time it can handle that load. And that's why when you start a program, you're lifting 5 weights. Within a few weeks, you can lift 7.5 weights, and then maybe 10-pound weights. That's your body adapting. And so it's really all about like how you're hitting that kind of wave curve. If you're doing workout Monday, workout Tuesday, workout Wednesday, all through the week, you're not giving yourself proper time to recover, and that's overtraining. If you wait way too long between workouts, your body will kind of go back to where it was in the beginning, and you're not going to really see any results. So the key is to kind of time where the curve is, you're recovered, you're feeling stronger than you were the last week or the last workout, and try to time your workouts that way. Great question. I don't know if that's specifically ever been looked at, if there's a difference in efficacy as far as longevity goes for different equipment. I would just say that resistance of any kind will increase your bone density. Again, whether that's been looked at in different modalities, how they would measure that, I'm not sure about that. But even recently on my podcast, I talked to several people who are, again, bone density experts that have reversed osteopenia, osteoporosis, really poor Z scores and T scores by doing strength training. So I would say, if it matters, I don't think it's enough to really override the fact of like, do whatever, do anything that you can do that is really challenging inside the body. Again, whether that's been studied and somebody's shown that, I'm unaware of that, but in my opinion, I would just say whatever you can do that is very, very challenging to your muscles will also be beneficial to the bones, alongside a good proper diet. I had one of these guys that I interviewed, he was very specific about how you needed to eat lots of fruits and vegetables and get all the minerals and vitamins. I said, okay, that's fine. I'm a carnivore. I've been carnivore for like 7 years. Like, would you be concerned with somebody like me doing long-term carnivore? And he just looked at me and he goes, yes, I would. And he stopped talking. I was so like thrown off that he wouldn't justify it that I like changed the subject and kept the conversation going when I should have questioned him. So whatever diet you choose, whether you go plant-based, animal-based, whatever, just make sure there's plenty of protein and make sure you're doing whatever strength training you can to keep the muscles strong. That will also benefit the bones. Yeah. So yes, they would. A lot of bands. Let me see if this one's a good example. Yeah, here's a good example. So this band says next to the brand name, this says that this band is 15 to 35 pounds, right? That's just kind of like a random reference. Like some of them, I have another set that goes from 1 to 5. It's not like 1 is 1 pound and 5 is 5 pounds. This band is not 15 to 35 pounds. It's just kind of a reference of something you can use. And remember that bands get harder the more that you pull them. So if somebody were, I mean, first of all, don't ever question medical advice. I wonder how they came up with 50 pounds as the magic number. But yeah, doing bands would be a good alternative to have like some variable resistance. And you maybe could just like look at a band and say, okay, this one says 15 to 35. Can I do this safely? Am I getting hurt? Like I would argue again that people that are 95 can pull on bands that fit their needs and they can get stronger. So that's a really great question. And again, I'd be curious to where like the 50 pounds, what is it about 50 pounds that 51 pounds would be too much, whatever. But yes, if you're concerned about that, bands should be a very safe alternative. I can tell you in 2 decades of personal training, they can snap. Very uncomfortable when one does on your client as they're doing an exercise. Generally speaking, the bands are pretty strong. So keep in mind, the equipment that I use, I think of it like gym use. The equipment that I take around and the bands I use with my clients, they're being used by all my clients all day, every day. So home use, you can get away with having like, less strong equipment because it's not getting used all the time like my stuff is. That said, like these rubber bands, like even though this isn't very thick, they don't tend to like break down very easily. What I'd be looking for is like little nicks in the side, little cuts as weak points. And as soon as you start to see those, definitely you want to ditch the band. Here's another example of a kind of a tube band. This is another one. This is thick. Like this is not going to snap on somebody. What you would notice is that it would develop like another little cut somewhere on the band itself that would start to kind of expand. That's when you know you're in a little bit of trouble. And if you want to be perfectly safe, you want to get rid of that band and replace it. I also have the bands that I use. Like I said, they're numbered 1 through 5. I get them from a brand called Spry, which makes a lot of different exercise equipment, and they are braided. 4 different resistance bands braided together to make one band. So they pull quite hard depending on the number that you have, but it's also a great fail-safe because if one of them develops a little bit of damage, it's not going to affect the rest of the bands. It's a safety mechanism. For example, mine started to break down. Again, I see clients all day, every day, so I need my equipment to be tip-top. So this is 5 years ago now. I went on Amazon, I got a new band, and the other band, it was one of the bands was kind of developing that cut, but the other 3 were fine. So I brought it over to one of my clients' houses. We've used it for the 5 years, and it is just fine still to this day. And we use it once a week. So it's not getting used all day, every day, but even then, that would be a thing you could be thinking about. So if you want to be perfectly safe with bands, I think the braided would be the best way to go, or just find like a good brand that has like really strong rubber that pulls hard. Robin just made a really good point that if they start to get like firm, like a rubber band that's like really old, that's another sign that they're probably breaking down and getting brittle. So yeah, glad you brought that up. That's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. Your body, unfortunately, as you probably know, you would rather lay around and watch Netflix, watch Drive to Survive on Netflix, than you would going and doing something very challenging. Your body is innately always very lazy, as we kind of evolved in a time when maybe calories were a little bit more sparse. We had to work a little bit harder. Our bodies wanted to be a little bit more efficient and not work hard. Our body does not want to work any harder than it does. So let's say that your strength level is this, and you do an exercise. Let's say it's a bicep curl, and it's 3 sets to 10, and you're on your last set, and you go 10, 11, 12, sick. Got my biceps done. Set the bar down, go somewhere else. What you did is you said that your current level of strength is greater than the work that you just put in. So your body just says, awesome, we already have the capacity to do what we just did. There's no need to try to adapt to this. We can continue being lazy. It's only when you have a stimulus, going back to that bicep curl, that you're like, boy, like that's about as hard as I can do. Maybe I use my lower body and lower really slowly, or work in certain ranges of motion until it's very, very challenging, that you send a signal to your body that says, like, holy smokes, I don't know what he was doing. Was he lifting a weight? Was he fighting a bear? Was he lifting a wheelbarrow? Like, the body doesn't know and doesn't care, but it knows it needs to adapt. It needs to get stronger than its current level because you just pushed right up against it. So that's when your body really gets that effect. And that's when I also like question if somebody's saying, like, yeah, I'm working out 5 days a week, 6 days a week. I don't really seem to be getting the results I'm wanting. We go back to that teeter-totter before, where probably the frequency is too high, and because you're working out all the time, you're not doing intense workouts. You think you might be, and they might be hard, but if you gave yourself a week of rest and then did a hard workout, you might be stunned how much more you can do there. So that's where you want, whether you call it, muscle failure, muscle fatigue. Another person that's been doing this for several decades, Fred Hahn in New York, he calls it muscle success. However you decide to get there, you want whatever you're doing to be very, very challenging by the time you stop. So thank you. Great question. So sometimes I do 30-minute workouts with people, and sometimes I do 60-minute workouts with people. And generally speaking, if somebody's doing 30 minutes, there's really like not much of a warm-up. You're pretty much just, let's get into the strength training. Let's get all the most important stuff done. I don't think most people need to, quote unquote, warm up the way we've been taught for so many years. Of course, you certainly can if that makes you feel better. There are some metabolic benefits to doing a warm-up before exercise, where you kind of ramp yourself up and give yourself a bit of a recovery. You'll actually increase the fat burning that you do after you do that. That can take maybe 5 or 10 minutes of just, again, slowly ramping yourself up a little bit. If somebody's training with me for an hour, we've got more time to work on things. Robin, you may remember when we first started our hour-long workouts, we would start with some component of, like, let's move the core. A version of, what's that? Do you want to, well, you can demonstrate some of the exercises we've done. So, like, did you do planks ever? Inchworms, yep, that's right. We've done those. So that's one way to kind of get moving. Leg swings can be another one. A lot of people, again, like to warm up the core, the middle part of the body. So for something like that, I might have somebody doing planks from their knees, maybe bridges where they're on their back, lifting up their hips. You could do marching movements. You could also work in different planes of motion where you're twisting with a resistance band. It's pretty, you look ready to go. Like, yeah. You could do things in the frontal plane of motion where you're moving to the side. So I generally just say, like, if you enjoy a warm up, if there's movements that you like that feel good, that make you feel like you're getting into some movement, I think those are all just fine. Just keep it pretty simple. And yeah, again, I don't think they need to take a ton of time. Awesome question. I'm glad you asked for clarification around it. Eat before a workout or workout in the fasted state. In my opinion, this all depends on your metabolism and what fuels you're using for your day-to-day life and for exercise. So if somebody is eating a high carbohydrate diet, especially when paired with a lot of calorie burning exercises that are too intense, a lot of time on the elliptical, a lot of time on the treadmill, that person is kind of your classic, like, I'm showing up to the gym in January, I'm huffing and puffing, and this is great. I lost 2 pounds this week, and then the weight loss starts to slow down. willpower starts to go away, cravings go up, people feel terrible. They, go way off their diet on the weekend, try to get back on it on Monday. Those types of people are typically burning a lot of sugar as their fuel source, and you just have a very tiny amount of sugar inside the body. So if you imagine that your body has 5 of these of blood in your body, you only have a teaspoon of sugar inside that blood, and you can only store so much in the muscles and the liver as well, and that runs out. So those people are, again, that in that example, if that person were to do a 10K or a half marathon or something, they might say, wow, I got to mile 8 and I just ran out of energy. I bonked, I hit the wall. And that's just simply somebody that is using all of their sugar storage, if you want to think of it that way, until it runs out. It's just like your car running out of gas. The cool thing is, once you change your eating and you eat mostly fats and proteins, you're now using fat as your primary fuel source. So this is what I was talking about earlier with my work on metabolic carts for over a decade. We could get somebody to decrease the amount of sugar they were burning and teach themselves how to burn tons and tons of fat. And when you don't burn any sugar, you're burning all the fat. You don't really run out of the sugar because that's not your primary fuel source. You can go much further. I was stunned when I was used to, doing a 2-hour bike ride with my team, and like, you're eating bananas before you leave, and you're drinking Gatorade and Cytomax as you go, and like an hour into the ride, everybody had to stop at a gas station so we could get cookies and like Fig Newtons and Coca-Cola to like top us off on that sugar storage. When I changed my diet, I could go ride at a moment's notice. It could be 20 hours after eating, 10 hours after eating. It didn't really matter, and I wouldn't need food on a long bike ride because I'm burning primarily fat. So that's a cool thing about the fasted state during workouts. One idea that I really like, that I stole from somebody, I should give them credit, and I don't know who it was, so sorry, whoever you are, is beasting, feasting, fasting. And the idea is the hunger cue doesn't necessarily mean it's time to eat. The hunger cue means that it's time to hunt. And when people get hungry, that's the time they would have been doing some form of exercise to get whatever food they were going to get. And then the feasting is to eat as much of that food as possible when you get it until you're really quite satisfied and full. And then fasting means you stop eating. You don't need to keep eating. You don't need snacks all the time. And so I tend to prefer, and most of the people that I coach tend to prefer working out in the fasted state. And once you understand what happens in fasting metabolism, you realize that you're not running out of energy. You're just getting your energy from the food that you've already eaten, the food that's already there. I'll give you an interesting example. I had a client who was very much obese. He lost a ton of weight by cycling. He was doing like 13 rides a week and calorie depleting. He got down to 200 pounds, felt like absolutely terrible, gained all the weight back and then some. And he started learning about fasting, about keto and that kind of thing. So he changed his approach when he wanted to lose all that weight. And he started to do fasting to the point that he was confident that he could actually do weekday fasts, meaning he would eat a meal on Sunday evening and his next meal would be Friday evening. Now, you want to consult with somebody who does this, so you make sure you do this correctly. And you also don't want to do this with somebody who's very thin, obviously, because they won't have the fat reserves to do it. I would train him strength training in the mornings on Tuesday morning and on Friday morning. And on Tuesday morning, the workout would be pretty normal. He would be hungry. He would feel a little bit hungry on Tuesday. When he would come in on Friday, the hunger had been gone for 3 days, and he wouldn't lift his normal amount. We could just keep adding more weight and more weight and more weight, and he would like PR deadlifts on a Friday, being 5 days fasted. And he'd go to work, which was computer work, coding all day, and he described like feeling like he was in the Matrix. Like he could just get so much work done with so much focus. And again, it's understanding that in the fasted state, if your metabolism is working correctly, you're using food that you've already consumed in the form of fat. So love the question. I think when most people start to change their diets and kind of focus on increasing their fat burning, more and more of them realize that not only is fasting like not that hard, it's actually like way preferred. I chose deliberately to fast today on a travel day because I feel a lot better than, eating something before getting on a plane and, running around and making this presentation. So again, kind of depends on where your metabolism is at. But once you change your diet, most people I think should be working out fasted, would prefer it anyway. Excellent. Great question. Supplements, in my opinion, should be just that. I think most of your nutrition should come from food. There's a few that are just kind of like low hanging fruit that I think most people either just don't get enough of or are just so inexpensive and easy to find that it kind of benefits everybody. A lot of debate about protein powders. If somebody does protein, I usually prefer that somebody has whey if they can tolerate it. Yeah, most people probably don't need it if they're eating the right way anyway. I think magnesium is an example of a really low-hanging fruit that most people could stand to benefit from. There's like 20 different versions of magnesium, and there's benefits and kind of setbacks to each one. So consult somebody much smarter than me if you decide to try it. Lots of different benefits there. I'm standing out here in Vegas in the sunshine. I think the sun's out like 300 plus days a year, which is amazing. I need to move here. So if you're in a climate where you're getting lots of sun and you're getting outside and not putting toxic chemicals or, not going outside and getting sunshine in your extremities, you're probably going to be D deficient. The risk of that increases the further extremes of the planet that you are, or the darker the pigmentation in your skin. It just makes it harder to get the vitamin D that you need. So that's another one that's very inexpensive, probably not as good as sunshine, but can maybe cover some deficiencies. Another one that I just did another podcast specifically on is creatine, which we've been using this and studying this for decades, and it's almost like the ketogenic diet, where it's like not a day passes where there's not a new study with a new benefit and shown to just be absolutely amazing. Creatine monohydrate is extremely safe, has tons of different benefits. We're learning now specifically about like mental health benefits that creatine has. You do get creatine in your food, but it's a really inexpensive and easy supplement to take to just make sure you're kind of topped off. So a 5-gram dosage of creatine monohydrate is just fine. 5 grams is not very much. And I know this kind of turns people off and sounds a little bit weird, but it's such a small scoop and the stuff like dissolves really quickly. I do what's called dry scooping. Yeah, Robin is nodding her head like a champ. If you have a big scoop of protein powder and you shove that in your face to try to wash that down, that's obviously going to be like the Sahara in your mouth. So don't recommend that. But with creatine, it's a lot smaller. So I just take a scoop when I'm by my container. I throw it in my mouth. I grab some water. It dissolves instantly. That way I have no dishes. Nothing gets dirty. I'm quite lazy in that way. So I think anybody, men, women, elderly, kids, I think anybody can benefit from creatine with all the information we've gotten about it out there. There's lots of different fancy ones, but seriously, like the most inexpensive creatine monohydrate you can get from Amazon should work just fine. Lots of debate as far as omega-3s, multivitamins. These are things I spent my career telling everybody they just had to have. A multivitamin, I don't know. It's kind of questionable. You're just taking a whole stack of a bunch of stuff. Do you need all that stuff? I don't know. Omega-3s, there's a question of, we know that an omega-3 is a polyunsaturated fat that is the most fragile for oxidation. Do you oxidize fish and fish oil as you process them? I don't know. So I don't really make those recommendations as often as I used to. The ones that I mentioned, I think they're easy ones. They don't have a lot of setbacks. They're good for most people. Besides that, my big recommendation is you probably have a cupboard in your house somewhere that has some crazy amount of supplements, and maybe you're taking them now. And I'll bet you if I went through every single one of those, you couldn't tell me if that was benefiting, if it was harming you, what in the world it does anyway. So what I tell people is if you have supplements already, take what you have, keep going. Go until they're all the way out, and then don't go back and reorder that supplement. Just give it a few days. I promise you, if your CoQ10 runs out and you don't take it for a few days, you're not going to die. I promise. You're going to be okay. And see if you notice a difference. And if you don't notice a difference, maybe it's just something that you're wasting your money on that's not really providing a benefit. Supplements are unregulated by the FDA, so I could say anything is in a bottle and sell it. And if I don't third-party test it, whether or not it has what it says it has, nobody really knows. So it's tricky, but I think those supplements that we named are the easiest ones for you might as well. It's easy. I'm just making all this stuff up, guys. If you believe any of this, I'm sorry. Wasn't that study absolutely fascinating? The recent study about the 10 grams an hour. Tour de France athletes are pushing 200 grams an hour now. of carbohydrate ingestion, bananas, literally bananas. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Long term, have we measured it long term? No, but I think the case studies of people that have been doing this for a very long time and assuming what, people have been doing for thousands and thousands of years, that long term is probably just fine. We would have been in ketosis for a ton of our lives. And yeah, I mean, 10 grams is completely different than what you're describing as people thinking they need like 100, 150. I did the same when I was competing. I will say this. So I play ice hockey at least once a week, which is highly glycolytic. You're going as hard as you can for a minute or two, and then you sit on the bench, catch your breath, and get back out. And it's, it's high intensity. It's high heart rate. I do it for an hour and a half when I do it. And it's with people that are pretty fast. And I've been on a carnivore diet for 7 years. I prefer even those workouts. Anything I do that requires any type of exertion, I really prefer doing it in the fastest state, including now ice hockey. I feel like you, I'm kind of really well adapted. I would not be surprised if I am maybe giving up the top like 2 or 3% of like peak performance. I can still chase down 20-year-olds. Not as I'm skating backwards playing defense. Like not many people are burning me to the outside. So I feel pretty good about that, but my top end has probably suffered a little bit. However, the reason why I do a carnivore diet is for, 30 other reasons that are very, very important to me. Like my mental health is so much better when I leave plants out of my diet. I notice that when I eat carbohydrates, even during exercise, I just feel like a little bit uncomfortably hungry again. And I just like want sugary stuff again. And if I stay away from it, I don't really want it anymore. So I could go through and list like so many other different reasons, but as I'm considering it, I'm not unfortunately being called by the Utah Mammoth to go play in the NHL. I'm waiting for the phone call to get drafted and they won't call. Unbelievable. So like presuming I'm not going to play the top levels, I'm willing to give up like the very highest percent maybe for all the other benefits that I get. So you really just have to consider like how important is the competition? What are you willing to kind of compromise on? Or like you said, it sounds like you found an amazing sweet spot that's just 10 grams that you don't notice any real setbacks. That if that 10 grams boosts your performance, it's awesome. The sleep is where your body is doing its repair. When we talked about like you leave the gym in worse shape than when you enter the gym, sleep is when most of your repair and improvement is coming, if you want to think of it that way. So incredibly important. It's really important to protect your sleep. All the sleep hygiene things we know, cool, dark rooms, blocking light past sunset. There's filters you can use. There's orange glasses you can use. I think even the directionality of where the light comes from is important. I think most light should be low and reddish at night. All of those things are important. It's also important to consider that getting good sleep starts in the daytime. And in the daytime, we do have blue light, this big blue sky that's above us here in Las Vegas. It is very, very bright. No room that you could ever make could get as bright as it is out here with the sun. And that helps if you want to think of it as like a pendulum. Swing the pendulum one way. You're getting lots of daylight during the day and then reducing it at night. It's just going to help you have a stronger signal for better, more restorative sleep. Caffeine, meal timing, whatever other things you do, I found for me, adopting a sauna several years ago was like the best thing ever. It's the worst part about traveling is knowing that I can't get in my sauna, which I do every single night. I never miss. Really helps me with my sleep. I've also found that grounding sheets can really help. But yes, that's a very important part. If you're not getting great sleep, try to do those behaviors to get better sleep. And just know that, yeah, you're probably right. Like if you don't get as good a sleep, it might take you longer to get fully recovered.
All right. Thank you, folks, for staying over on this call. It's just a testament to how engaging this watering hole has been. I'm going to close things out with just saying that if you like this, there's so many more ways you can get involved with Metabolic Collective. I'm linking it all in the chat. Visit our calendar page with all of our events. If clicking into that calendar is any trouble at all, feel free to reach out to us at info@metaboliccollective.org. Thank you, everybody, for making this possible. Thank you, Casey, for giving this demo.
Thank you, guys. That was awesome. You guys at Metabolic Collective You guys at Metabolic Collective did an amazing job putting this on, and all the questions were amazing, and the live audience is pretty cool too. So thank you. It was great.
Our first time having the live clapping sound. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Live from Vegas, closing out. Bye.